Welcome to the This Is His Story podcast, the executive director and pastor guide to sowing and reaping online givers.
Welcome to episode 15, a MasterClass built for executive directors. This episode is for all the executive directors of Christian organizations out there wearing so many different hats. My job has me interacting with many. I've been blessed to meet along the way in the U.S. and abroad. And, besides personality types and skill levels, there's really different types of executive directors out there based on the types of ministries and the sizes of the organizations. Of course, some have pastoral backgrounds. Many of them are mission-minded, but they're all equipped differently. Therefore, they really act as executive directors differently. Some, like I say, some are very mission-minded, and maybe their weak spot is digital or even fundraising. It seems to be the one thing everybody needs the most, and it's the one that people probably don't like doing the most because they'd rather focus on the mission or focus on their leadership of those around them. And the idea of digital and fundraising, and in my case, where those two meet is digital fundraising, is normally, the redheaded stepchild of the skill sets. It's the one that people probably need the most, especially here we are in 2022 when I'm recording this. Online giving is such a huge opportunity, and yet it's the one place that organizations, specifically executive directors, really don't focus, or sometimes they focus too much on it and then they miss the other things. So I find all kind of different personalities and all kind of reasonings that organizations have their blind spots, or as they like to call them, we just don't have time for that or the resources for that. But as we all know, that's not a good excuse when you're leaving opportunities on the table just because your website, your social media, your email is out of date, or there's, zero strategies there. Donors are key to our organization and our missions. Without them, we literally can't do what we want to go do. And I say this all the time. God could blow lottery checks against the window of every Christian organization and fund them, but that's not the way he normally works. He works through people, and it's our job as organizations to tell people our needs and what we do with their money so that ministry gets done. And we have a responsibility to ask, and to ask correctly and authentically. And so as an executive director, we have plenty of options of where to spend our time, or our team's time, but normally some of the very important digital stuff gets put to the side with the excuse of money or time or resources, right? Here's the other problem that I'm seeing that's happening in the Christian organization world, and that is too many organizations trust their digital strategy to the free information that they pick up along the way, meaning it doesn't take 10 minutes of Googling to find podcasts, to find YouTube videos, to find blog articles telling you what you should be doing. And unfortunately, or even going to conferences and, hearing somebody from the stage saying, here's something that worked for us, and therefore you ought to be doing it as well. And I liken it to this old adage of playing football and trying to run other people's plays with your team. It just doesn't work. What you have to do is have a unique offensive coordinator that helps you with the plays that you run based on the talent that you have and what your goals are, right? You're trying to run out the clock. You don't throw passes. And, you don't run a flea flicker if you don't have your team can't hold a block, right? And so what happens is so many people have social media plans, email plans based on quote unquote best practices, but they're not really good at having a overall digital strategy that works for Christian nonprofits. And a lot of the help that you get online really has nothing to do with being Christian. It is like, well, here's best practice. But we all know there's a difference between buying and donating. And there's a difference between donating to secular and donating to a Christian organization, right? There's this Holy Spirit aspect that's sort of it's an X factor. And it changes the way that you can ask. And it's not so matter of fact of, 1 + 1 = 2. In God's kingdom, 1 + 1 can equal infinity, right? God multiplies his spirit and his will and providential plan, trumps things, right? He can turn fish and loaves into feeding of thousands. So there are miraculous stories and God stories along the way, and it does affect how this works. So knowing this, you can't just go grab quote unquote best practices and plug them into a Christian organization's digital strategy and social media strategy because they just don't line up very well, right? So what happens is with all the borrowing of information, you sometimes get a hodgepodge of ideas and strategies that are being implemented by an organization who inconsistently sends out newsletters, inconsistently does thank yous, hasn't changed their website in years, out-of-date information. And what happens to a donor is confusion and a stagnant donor database or email database. And then what happens is I get the phone call of frustration from the executive director saying, we just must not be doing something right, or we think we know what we should be doing, but we're still just not sure. And we're going through a transition. And one of the excuses I get of, sometimes not being hired or a delay of being hired is, well, let us finish our website. We already know what we need to do. Or, well, we're hiring somebody new and they're going to fix these problems. And what normally happens is they call me 6 months, a year later, and said, wow, we wish we would have called you earlier, because they thought the website was going to fix their problem. They thought, when we move email systems, it's going to fix our problem. We now have a volunteer who's going to work on social media and that's going to fix our problems. But none of those things ever fix their problems. And then they realize, if we would have brought you in, we would have built the website differently. We didn't think about that. We just thought we'd get a new website and we had some ideas, put some videos up there, and that's going to solve all our problems. But it doesn't. And so what happens is executive directors need an offensive coordinator. And it's sometimes they try to build their team, and then they bring you in and say, okay, we'll work with this. And if they would have brought in someone earlier, they would have had a chance to have somebody help them build the team. What's the old saying with Bill Parcells, right? He was a frustrated coach who wanted to be involved in drafting of players. And of course, general managers are the ones who want to draft the players. And his argument was, well, if you want me to cook, I got to be able to go to the grocery store. Like, if I've got to be involved in the picking of the ingredients, if you want me to be the cook, you can't just buy bananas and meatloaf and then expect me to cook something that's edible. And I would say the same is true with help, especially with digital strategy. A lot of people want me to come in or someone to come in and help us. And the answer was, well, but you've laid the wrong foundations. Therefore, we're going to have to, really make some changes. I'm always big on, as a side note, I think out of hundreds of people, churches, organizations that I've helped, I bet there's less than a handful I've ever had them change their website. Normally, everybody blames the website as the problem. And the reality is it's not an overhaul. It's lipstick. It's, wording changes, maybe moving some things around, changing navigation. And I would say 99.99999% of the time, it's a bad donation page, which leads to a lot of problems, because if everything is a funnel to the donation page and the donation page is wrong or inadequate or poorly worded, poorly presented, then you're going to have bad results. And so I normally start with that and move back up. Anyway, I digress. But But here's the thing when it comes to getting help with executive directors. This is my issue here. I liken it to someone who wants to get in shape. They say they want to get in shape. They really want to in their heart, but they won't hire a personal trainer. Well, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, after a couple times in the gym working out, they're still out of shape. And the answer was they never went and got the personal trainer because the personal trainer, one, knows more than they do. Two, it provides accountability. And three, when you pay for a personal trainer, you sometimes when you want to get out of bed, you're like, oh, I think I'm going to sleep in. Well, there's a personal trainer waiting on you. You've paid him. It forces you up. And that's the thing I find with digital strategy is having someone to be accountable to is pointing you in the right direction, helping you get there. You actually get there. I know very few people have hired a personal trainer and stick with it. They don't have success. But isn't that funny? But people are like, I don't want to pay for it. Well, a year or two later, if you look back and say, if I just would have done it, I would have lost the weight I wanted to lose. Well, it works the same way with digital strategy. It really does. I've never had anybody hire me that didn't thank me for the progress that they made and they didn't see results. And so normally it's funny, I get hired over and over by the same clients because once they know that it works, they're willing to do it. People who've had personal trainers hire personal trainers because they see the difference in their results. And so a lot of executive directors are they can't get over the justifying of the price because they just don't understand how much they're being hindered by their current methodologies and or the fact that they don't have enough money. They think they don't have enough money coming in and therefore they can't justify it going out, but they don't understand it's an investment. They're investing into the future of their organization and their ability to collect new names and to fundraise so they can do more mission. So how does this involve you? Well, the title of this episode is a masterclass built for executive directors. So having experienced this for decades, I realized that there was a lot of organizations that needed my help and just said they couldn't afford it. Though I argue, sort of like the guy said, I can't afford a personal trainer, but I have a motorcycle in my garage that I haven't driven in 3 years or a boat. You have ways. You always have a way to pay for something if it's important to you. If you really want a personal trainer, sell the golf clubs in the back and get started. Like there's some organizations who say they don't have the money. Most of them really do. They just aren't ready to sacrifice what it takes to take that next step. And so I found so many organizations that needed help, said they couldn't afford it. And of course, I try to help as many people as I can. I take phone calls. I'll answer emails. Like I legit want to help Christian organizations succeed. And I offer my services, but the problem is there's only one of me. And as much as the phone rings or emails, I just can't answer everybody. And what it takes to really move the needle is more than a 30-minute phone call or an hour phone call. I find those to be Band-Aid solutions, and I may move the needle a little bit, but it really doesn't solve the real problem. And so what I decided was that I almost tell the same things, 80, 90% to people over and over and over and over. So why don't I record it? So I did. I literally created a masterclass that's 8 lessons long, and it is the things I tell everybody, but in the order they need to be told. Like I spent a lot of time planning this class to say, we're going to start here. We're going to start with a case for support. We have to talk about your logo and your tagline. We spend time talking about the homepage. We spend time talking about the donation page, about social media strategy, about emails, about how donors work and their mindset works and the language that we use with them. It's 8 full lessons. And so what I did is I created this masterclass, recorded it to be watched by organizations, and I decided not to sell it per person. I decided to sell it one class per organization for a lifetime. That way, if an organization owns it, they hire a new webmaster. That new webmaster can watch it. And I worked really, really hard on this because I just knew that over time, I built it to be timeless. It's not built on today's trends. It's philosophical and practical application of digital fundraising for Christian nonprofits. And it's made for organizations that have more than just the executive director. It needs a small team or a large team, but it needs a team. It's not based on a one-man show, because if you're a one-man executive director, you've got bigger problems than creating a robust digital strategy, because you're not big enough to even do one. There's not enough time in the day. Like, it's made for small organizations that may outsource, have a couple people on their staff. I say it's anywhere from a couple $100,000 a year up to $20 million a year organization. Those are two guesses, but you have to have some kind of budget that you are willing to not only invest in a cheap solution to move the needle for your organization, but you actually have money to implement. And I don't tell you to go buy new software. No, here's the magic bullet. I actually highly encourage you to use the systems that you have, but I do recommend systems for people who are literally open to changing. I do say, here's the ones that work well, and here's how these play together nicely. But I created this masterclass. I created it cheap. My retainer fee for 1 month is what this is. And normally I require a year contract. So times that times 12. And I've got this priced 1 month. 1 month lifetime access per organization for a masterclass that will move the needle for your organization to fundraise, to grow their email database, and to get monthly donors. We still have a whole lesson on monthly donors, how to get them, how to keep them, how to retain them. This is my best stuff. It really is. And I give two options. I actually have a cheaper option than my 1 month retainer, and that is just to have access to all 8 lessons. What I highly recommend is the higher price one that allows you to call me once a week and be on a group Zoom to ask me questions. Say, hey, look what we did. We actually went through your lesson number 4, and look what we did. Would you take a look at it? Would you mind giving us a fresh set of eyes? And can you talk about this email we set up? And I will help you through those, because I feel like I don't want to just leave the baby at the doorstep. I want to actually help you. So I want to teach you, but I also would like you to turn in a paper and have me look at it and grade it and really move the needle on improvement for your organization. So, executive directors, there's so many jobs, so many hats. You have so much to do, and technology is such a big hat, an ever-changing hat. And instead of chasing plays, chasing best practices, most organizations do not have a good, solid strategy and a lighthouse to row to. And then they don't make plans and baby steps. They put the plans in the wrong order. Sometimes the best practices are good, but they're in the wrong order. I've had people who literally pay for ads on Facebook to then have a horrible landing page or a ill converting donation page. So why would you be spending money? Like, you go to your webmaster goes to a conference and he comes back and goes, oh, I just learned how to run great Facebook ads. Hey, let's invest money into this. And you spend weeks of time and money and effort into it. You're like, well, that didn't produce a lot of results. Well, of course it didn't. You weren't ready to run ads. You didn't have the other things taken care of. And so what my masterclass does is it puts all the important elements of creating solid digital strategy in the right order, in the right lessons. And if you take the classes in order like you're supposed to, it's refresher courses. It's helping you find the next steps, and you take it at your own pace. So if between lessons 1 and 2 or 4 and 6, you need more time, take your time. This isn't a conference. I thought about teaching this at a conference, but it's too much information. It's made to take, some organizations are going to jump from 1 to 2, and some people are going to take weeks between 1 and 2 as they go work out what they learned in lesson 1. So go take a look at my website, creativedigitalguide.com. There's access straight to the masterclass, or you can watch a webinar to learn a little bit more. But executive directors, I literally am here to help you. I want you to succeed. And I literally poured my best after working decades with organizations and churches just so that you will succeed. Take a look. Literally, it is a money back guarantee. You can't even go wrong. You can't even go wrong. It's money back guarantee. Invest into digital strategy. And if it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. Go take a look.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of This Is His Story podcast.
Overwhelmed at all the technical terms, trends, options, cost, invoice signings for your organization's digital strategies? Join other leaders of Christian organizations as we join hands in our closed Facebook group. Go to creativedigitalguide.com/Facebook to register and apply for access. I'm only allowing executives of Christian organizations in. No vendors, no high-pressure sales, no gimmicks, into this closed Facebook group. Sign up today and be encouraged and informed as you lead your Christian organization. Looking for a free resource to help your organization move the needle on new names and donors? Watch the 5 simple shifts to gain dedicated donors with your digital strategies webinar. Go to creativedigitalguide.com to register for this on-demand resource built exclusively for executive directors. creativedigitalguide.com for more information of gaining donors and telling stories that convert to new names and donations. Fund your God-sized mission.